Hi there, I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com, and this is my Smart American Accent training. Welcome to our Friday live question and answer class, where you can ask questions regarding the American accent, American English pronunciation, intonation. You can tell me words that you need help pronouncing, sounds you have difficulty with, and you can ask any follow-up questions if you've been following our American Sounds Challenge series on YouTube. We've been looking at all of the sounds of American English, one sound at a time, and talking about accent error patterns you might have on those sounds, how to correct those patterns, and how to get the new American accent patterns into your everyday speech. So please feel free to ask your questions at any time in the chat. If you're watching on Facebook, jump over to the YouTube link in the description so that you can ask your questions in the chat, because that's where I monitor the questions. And if you're watching this and it's not live, you can leave questions in the comments. I always do go back and look at those, answer the questions, give you resources, and direct you to where you can find the answers. So I have many videos on my YouTube channel, over 500 now, talking about words and sentences, intonation, and various difficult sounds in the American accent. So you can find a lot of the information that you're looking for using the search tools on my YouTube channel. That's Speech Modification Seattle on YouTube. And also on my website, speechmodification.com. I have many free resources, free lessons, videos, and help for you for American accent training. Welcome. Thank you for being here, everyone. Pascal wants to know, do Americans sometimes drop the voiced TH sound in fast speech? So if I'm talking about, I was in the meeting the other day, I think that the TH pretty much needs to stay. I do sometimes hear Americans stopping that TH sound a little bit, but for the most part, I would say no, that's not one of the sounds that drops out. It's definitely unstressed in many contexts, especially when I'm using the word the, and it's linked in. So I link from, for example, in phrases like in the, I'm linking between the N and the TH, and it becomes more of one sound, in the. But it's typically always there. If it were missing, it would be difficult to understand what words were being said. So I'll give that some more consideration and think about if there's any times that that sound gets reduced or dropped, but typically no, it doesn't. So we have another question. What is the ending sound in angel? The ending LS or ending angel? Okay, so I'll talk about the word angel and the word angels in case you're asking about the plural. So angel is a good example of the final L sound in American English. And this is something that we actually just talked about in the American Sounds Challenge. That was the most recent class. I believe it was lesson 19. And so the L at the ends of words in American English is different. Yeah, he's asking about angels, or she, is different than the L at the start of words. And so when I'm saying angels, I want to make sure that I have an extra O sound, before the L. So it's really, if I'm saying angels, the IPA is like this, A, N, N, J. That's like the J sound, gels, and angels, and it's really a schwa, an L, and a Z. So the final sound, when I make angel plural, the S says Z, because L is a voiced sound. So whenever I'm adding an S to make something plural, if it goes on a voiced sound like bed, beds, have, haves, angel, angels, then that needs to be a Z. And to say that final syllable and that final L correctly, I need to have the dark L where my back of my tongue is down and I'm lifting. So angels, it kind of has an O sound to it. You can get more help for that dark L on my American L video, where I talk about the L at the beginning of words versus the L at the ends of words. And you can get more help for plurals, knowing when S says S and when it says Z, in either my plurals video or my S and Z spelling video. You'll find both of those helpful. And for any of these questions, you can simply go One of the best ways to find this information, if of course coming to class and asking me is great, but on speechmodification.com, you want to go to the free practice and look at the online practice free trial. That's where all of the free lessons and videos are. And then you'll see that there's a search box here. And I can use that search box. And for example, if I want to know more about plurals, I can type that in. And then all of the lessons related to plurals will come up. So I can look through and scan through and say, oh, okay, here's one about plurals. Here's one about final Z. So I'm going to look at lesson 13 plurals, and then I can see the rules for plurals. I can watch a video, and I can see more links to help me get more detailed information to answer my question. Also, there's a search tool on the YouTube channel. If you're more of a YouTube user, go to my channel page and type in your question there. We have some more questions. Can you explain how to make the a vowel, as in words exam and man? It kind of changes because of the M and M consonant. So yes, when we did talk about vowel a in the American Sounds Challenge, and that's a front vowel with an open mouth and the tongue at the bottom. So when I'm saying a, my mouth is the most open of all of the front vowels. And I have to make sure that I'm using a relaxed, lax tongue. And so when I'm saying a in words like after or at, I can stay pretty open because I'm not having to move to that N. When I'm saying man, and what was the other word? Exam. I'm moving into the N and the M from the A, and it can make you hear the A as being a little bit more nasal, of a nasal sound, exam, man, but it really is the same vowel. And you can go slowly and try exam, but most likely what happens is you're not opening quite as wide on words like man and exam. And so that may change the color or the quality of the vowel a little bit, but it's the same vowel in at and man. And what you can do is find a word where it's easy for you to make this a vowel. Maybe it's after, maybe it's had, and pair it with the word you find more challenging. So had, man, had, an exam. That's you can try to keep your vowel consistent despite the different consonants around the vowel sound. Great question, thank you. Hi, nice to see everyone who's just joining. We have a question. When people say what's happening, it sounds like what's happening. It's like the H disappeared. Yes, so one of the reductions that we use in running speech, a reduction is where a sound gets dropped off or changed in order to add fluency to the speech, is that the initial H will sometimes drop out. So your example, what's happening, we might say more like what's happening, what's happening. Although I would say that might be mostly your ear. When I say what's happening, the H is definitely there. But if I'm saying, for example, give it to him, give it to him, it might change into something more like give it to him, give it to him. That one is not a very good example. If I try, how about is he busy? This H here in the beginning of he will sometimes drop off, and it's, rather than is he busy with a break between is and he, it ends up sounding more like is he busy? Is he busy? Is he? Because if I have to aspirate that H, is he, then I have to break between those two words, and it's not as fluent. So I do have a lesson about initial H and how that drops out. I would say what's happening, you might want to make sure that the H stays there. What's happening sounds a little bit incorrect to me. It is unstressed, and you might just not be hearing it as clearly because of that. Great, good comment. Another question, could you please explain the difference between tree and three in pronunciation? Yes, so three starts with the TH, which is this sound, th, and tree just starts with a T. And what you might find is that when you're trying to make a TH for 3, you might have an error pattern where it sounds more like tree. And so you want to make sure that you can make that initial TH sound. Try it on words like think and thin. Tongue is between the teeth and the air is flowing. Once you can say the initial TH, think, thin, by itself, then try it together with the R. 3, through, throw. It's a challenging combination because you have to move from the very forward between the teeth TH to the back 3. You can have the back of your tongue starting to be tight and ready, but your tongue needs to stay between your teeth. And if it's too far back, tree, or pushing against your teeth, your 3 will sound more like tree. So that's the main difference between those words, the th versus the t sound at the beginning. I do have a full playlist about pronouncing TH, and I do have a video about the words 3, through, and throw to help you with that THR combination, which is a tricky combination for a lot of people. Great questions today. I'm getting a little behind, so if I haven't answered your question yet, I see it there and I will get to it. Next question. I do hear people pronounce close for clothes. Yes. So the words close and clothes, like close the door and clothes, technically have a different pronunciation. This one should be close, and this one should be, this is an IPA, it's okay. This one should be close. But that's really tricky, clothes, and kind of cumbersome. And so many Americans pronounce both clothes and clothes as close. My clothes are in the closet and I close the door. And I recommend doing that just like the Americans do, because clothes is tough. Certainly it's correct, and if you can easily say the th and z together, go ahead and use it. But clothes is very acceptable for clothes that you're wearing. And that's pretty typical American pronunciation as well. Next question. How to know the difference between the N and the NG sound? These are great questions. We've been talking about many of these patterns and differences in the American Sounds Challenge. Check that out in the playlist. And also I have specific videos for this. But N and NG, the main difference there is the position where I make it in the mouth. So when I'm making the N sound, I'm sealing off behind my teeth. When I'm making the sound, I'm sealing off with the back of my tongue in my mouth. So examples of words, thin versus thing. I should be able to hear thin, I'm sealing off in the front, and thing, I'm sealing off in the back. Many people have error patterns on these sounds where they might interchange them for each other. They might be trying to say sing and it sounds more like sin. They might be trying to say in and it sounds like ing. So learn where to make the N and the NG sound with your tongue, and then you can differentiate those. NG is almost always spelled with the letters NG, and it's never an N and a G sound. That's always an ng sound. Occasionally NG is spelled with N. For example, in words like think, this is really an sound before the K, but you typically will say that correctly. It's very difficult to say think, and you can hear that it's not correct. The IPA for that is thing. So I have the NG sound spelled by letter N. But for the most part, when you see the letters NG, this sound. When you see the letter N, this sound. Great question again. Next question. In songs and casual conversations, that not have is reduced to nada. Is it common, or it depends on how an individual uses it? So I do not have an answer. It's nada, not of, not have. I'm not familiar with that, and I haven't noticed it. So we definitely do reduce. I would say most of the time, rather than trying to reduce not and have, and we wouldn't use do not, we'd use don't. I don't have. Yeah. So sometimes what you can do when you're listening to a song or you're looking at a video is turn on the closed captioning and see how the captions dictate what words it is, and then listen like you are to hearing those reductions, hearing the sounds that you're noticing, and then trying to compare the two. And if you send me a specific example where you're hearing that, I can listen to it as well and give you better feedback on that. Off the top of my head, that doesn't seem like something that I've heard or noticed, but that doesn't mean that that it doesn't exist. So you're very good at observing and paying attention to those types of reductions. So another question, I'm having a hard time pronouncing these words with T-U-R-E at the end. Structure, nature, future, all of those have this suffix T-U-R-E, and it sounds like chur. So it's actually also spelled like that in American English. So for example, in the word archer or butcher, it's spelled like that for butcher. The pronunciation is the ch sound and the sound. And so for ch, you want to make sure you have some lip rounding and that you're pushing the air out. Structure, nature, and future, kind of not thinking so much about the T and thinking more about the ch sound. You might try some words that start with that sound, like cheek, cheer. This is one that has the same combination, the chir, chirp. That might also be difficult for you to say. But if you think about that, and that's easy for you to say, then you want to put that same chir sound at the end of your words, structure, nature, and future. Another question, rear view mirror. Yeah, that is a tough one. So rear is difficult because I have to go from the R to the final R. So it's rear, kind of a R-E, re, and then rear. And there's a little bit, you can hear rear. There's a little bit of a Y sound gliding between the E and the So if I go really slowly, it would be rear. Rear view, and then mirror is again the same ear and then an rear view mirror. Very challenging. Some of those words and phrases with lots of American R's really loaded down are quite challenging to do. You just have to go slowly enough to try to get all of those R sounds in there in sequence. And good luck with that. In one of my upcoming classes, I'll do some challenge words like that, and I'll include yours because that's a great suggestion. Okay, good comments and questions so far. Please feel free to keep chiming in with them as we continue. All right, so Pascal came up with an example for me. Whoever said money can't solve your problems must not have had enough money to solve them. Must not have had. Oh, okay, so it's the have had. That's getting reduced, not the not have, which must not have had, not have had, must not have had enough money. Yeah, okay, so it's I would say you could do that in casual speech. What they're doing is taking not have had, and they're taking not have, and they're changing it to not have had, must not have had, and maybe taking it one further to nada, must not have had, which is basically just that not of is challenging to close to that V, and so it gets sloppy and sounds like not a had. I wouldn't really adopt this in your casual speech. I would go for trying to get not of, because that's typically when there's multiple verbs in a row, we do often use contractions. I will have been talking for a while now. He would not have had, he wouldn't have had, and then we add wouldn't have. So wherever we can shorten have to the contraction VE or will to the contraction L, we tend to do that. So thank you for clarifying your question. And I would say trying to put the V in there is probably going to be clearer in speaking, even though it does maybe drop out for some people when they're not being as precise in their speech. Junior says, I think I hear people using nada when they sentences like he's not a man. So yeah, in there, you're welcome. In there, he's not a man is actually saying those words, not a man. And you're just noticing that the you pronounce this as it's vowel schwa. So we don't ever say not a man. A is an incorrect pronunciation. You want not a. And then we just link, nada, not a man. And the T becomes more of a flap T, which sounds a little bit like a D. So nada. He's not a man. It's not a problem. Yeah, that's definitely how we use that. And you're correct. So good listening. Another question about contractions. So how to say it'll, that'll, and it'd. So we do for it will, we reduce that to it'll. It sounds like vowel I, flap T, and dark L, which basically has a schwa before it. So it'll, it's 2 syllables. The O sounds like O, and it sounds like it'll. And then that'll, same thing. That will, we say that'll. So that just changed the it to, this is a flap T, that'll. Again, our work at the beginning of class on the final L with the schwa before it, the O sound, will be helpful for you here. And then it'd. And we say that for it would. We say it'd be nice. So it'd sounds like I, flap T, and then I and D. It'd. So even though we're not writing a letter there for that, we are doing a vowel sound in all of these. There's the schwa or the I, those reduced sounds for those syllabic consonants at the end. So it'll, that'll, and it'd. Great, really good questions. I'm happy we're talking about contractions because that's definitely something that many non-native speakers don't use contractions very naturally. They will be much more likely to say it will be or it would be, and Americans almost always will say it'll be, and it'd be nice if if this happened. It'll happen or not. We definitely contract those helping verbs in all of those contexts. So that's another way to have more fluent, natural sounding American speech. Not have reduced to nada is like should have reduced to shoulda. Yes, yeah, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Again, is an easier way to say should've, could've, and would've. And I suggest trying to go with should've and could've, and then in casual speech, it's perfectly okay to say, I shoulda done that, I should have done that. It's basically like that V drops off because going between the D and the V is challenging, even for native speakers. So very good observations, guys. Okay, so we looked a little bit at how to use the search tools on speechmodification.com to look up your questions for words and phrases, and you can use those on my YouTube channel as well. Many of the fundamentals of American accent training are available to you in my online courses, as well as more advanced help. And right now, all of my online courses are free for 2 weeks. You can get a free 2-week free trial before you start, and then they're under $5 a month for the subscription. And they're videos and texts, lessons, much like what we're doing here, but they walk you through step by step how to change your speech. If you're here in the Seattle area, I hope that you'll be able to join me for some of my group classes, which are coming up. The next round of classes begin in March, and I'll have 4 different times to choose from. So you can come Tuesday mornings, Wednesday evenings, or Saturday mornings. Again, those will be in March, and you can find details about the classes on speechmodification.com and check those out. So I hope you can be a part of that if you're here. If you're not in the Seattle area, I also do work with people one-on-one and create customized, individualized training for your specific needs. So you can go that route. You can always, of course, use all of the free resources here on YouTube, on Facebook, and on my website, speechmodification.com, to help you. I like to really provide you with everything you need. I do like the online courses because they help you get organized with the information. There's so much great free information out there, but it's sometimes hard to know how it applies to you and how to best use it to move forward with your American accent. So I try to structure my classes in such a way that can help you walk through those steps and move through that. We will be continuing the American Sounds Challenge next week, and our next class will be on Monday at 9 a.m. And we're going to be looking in that class at a new sound. Let me check and see what it is. I believe we're going to be looking at the initial T sound. So T at the start of words, and American T is a topic that deserves a lot of attention because we do different things at the start of a word, in the middle of the word, and at the end of the word with the T. And it's definitely something that you might want to address because you may have accent error patterns in your speech. So I hope you can join me for that. That'll be at 9 o'clock on Monday, 9 o'clock Pacific time. And you can catch the whole American Sounds playlist, American Sounds Challenge, on the playlist on my channel page, as well as on speechmodification.com. So if you're just joining in to the challenge and you would like to look at specific sounds, you can look by sound, or you can watch the full challenge. And by the time it's finished, we'll have talked about all of the sounds in American English. So thank you so much for being a part of class today. Those were really great questions, and I enjoyed having you here. I hope that you can join me again next week on Friday at 12 o'clock Pacific time for our weekly question and answer class. And again, if you have questions, things you need help with, please feel free to leave a comment on this video or any of my videos, and I'll get back to you with where you can find the answers. Thanks so much for being a part of class. I'm Christine Dunbar from speechmodification.com. Remember, if you want to sound American, you can do it. speechmodification.com.